So shaken as we are, so wan with care, find we a time for frighted peace to pant, and breathe short-winded accents of new broils to be commenced in strands afar remote. Welcome to A Niche Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. I'm your host, Jasmine Garcia.
No! What happened to my sweet girl, huh? She's gone! You want answers? Fight for them. Eddie?
No, let me go.
Eddie!
Let me go.
I'm sorry.
Jesus, have you not? You've done enough!
I'm the Swamp Queen. You're the one who never left the pool. I'm sorry. Eddie! Eddie!
Happy Wrath Month, everyone. And joining me today are...
Hi, I'm River, and the coincidence is intentional.
I'm Matt, and look, Mike, sandwiches.
I'm Kyle, and I have heard the chimes at midnight.
So today we are going to be discussing My Own Private Idaho, the Gus Van Sant directed film that is very, very loosely based off of the two Henry IVs and Henry V.
Greetings, I am IER-60, Star Wars Retelling Connection. Point of intersection found. This is a degree 4. Flea plays Vect Nokru in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And this is basically going to be roughly 2 hours of all of you telling me how wrong I am.
Well, you haven't said anything about it, so we don't know how wrong you are.
I mean, you gotta give us the gauge.
This movie made me experience shrimp emotions, so that's where I'm at.
Shrimp emotions?
Yeah, you know the joke at like how shrimp have like 16 eye cones, so they see colors that we cannot as humans perceive with our measly 3 eye cones?
Ah.
So, shrimp emotions. Emotions not meant to be perceived by the human psyche.
I get that.
I love it. Thank God Callie isn't here. They would absolutely be doing the shrimp heaven now bit. But yeah, you know what? Before I go into my obviously wrong opinions, what's everyone's connection to these three particular works by William Shakespeare?
I have no Henriette experience. I was never required to do the history plays by any of my English teachers or any of my English education, and for them I say thank you.
They're really not that bad. There's some good stuff here. Like,
I'm sure there is some great stuff in it. So I guess my experience with Henry is I read Unruly, which is a comedian's attempt to write about English history via the kings and queens up to Elizabeth I. It's a time. It's a great book. You should read it.
that does sound fun.
That is my grand sum total of the experience with this quarter of Shakespeare.
Henry V was like, I think, one of the first Shakespeare plays that I got into that I didn't have to read in school.
Really?
Partially because of the Kenneth Branagh film, and I was a young edgelord boy, and hey, it's a war story. And there are these monologues about going into battle and that sort of thing.
Okay, that actually makes sense, because I was going to make a whole point about how nobody's favorite Shakespeare is any of the Henrys, but
Henry V, it's a battle, and it was also a scenario in one of the early Age of Empires games, because there's a bit in Age of Empires 2 where you can play the Agincourt.
Oh,
but,
that's right.
Which I Let's Played a while back. But,
yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, I think I used Henry's speech about tennis balls as an audition piece for a while.
Nice.
My big connection with the Henriette in general, I've seen Chimes at Midnight. I love Chimes at Midnight. And the Gus Van Sant adaptation here borrows a lot from Chimes at Midnight, and particularly like the blockings of the entire bit where they do some highway robbery and then get scared by Prince Hal in disguise, and then they listen to Falstaff's lies about how many people were attacking him. That's pretty much lifted not just from the Henriette, but from the blocking used by Orson Welles in Chimes at Midnight, down to the bathrobes used as monks. Because they're disguised as monks in the woods in Chimes at Midnight, and for some reason it's pink bathrobes with guns. And in my Own Private Idaho. I honestly knew of Gus Van Sant better than Shakespeare in this when I saw it first time. Because honestly, the Shakespeare connection is the least interesting part of it for me.
That's fair. That's really fair.
Well, I'm just gonna join the choir here. I don't have a lot of experience with the Henrietta either, but I have seen this movie before, so if that counts for anything.
I'd say it does. Like, you know, we like to talk about like any other adaptations we've experienced or anything we've experienced with this. And as for me, I guess I'm the only one who studied it in school. That's actually really interesting. I'm not in high school, college. There was like this really
English minor.
I was an English major for 2 years actually, because Stony Brook did not offer an education major and then I went to UCF, and then it did. But
Black and wild.
And indeed. But yeah, no, I did. That was really the only way you were going to get me to touch any of the Henrys. I remember enjoying them, and I've seen bits and pieces of the Kenneth Branagh one. And really, ever since I saw your video on this movie, Kyle, I was quite intrigued.
It might be my favorite Gus Van Sant movie, honestly. Better than Jerry.
Which you
way
made
better
2
than
videos
Good Will
about.
Hunting.
But is it better than To Die For?
I have not seen To Die For.
To
You
Die
should
For,
see
that's
To
the
Die
Nicole
For.
Kidman one? Is that
Yes.
the Nicole Kidman one? I do love that one. I do love that movie.
Has anyone else besides me seen Even Cowgirls Get the Blues?
No.
With Uma Thurman and her mutant thumbs?
It's on my list.
What?
That's
Uma-
a sentence.
I think, wait, it is Uma Thurman, I think. Let me double check, make sure I'm not talking out of my ass.
I don't know. Does anyone want to dance like her?
Okay, yes, it is Uma Thurman. She is the world's greatest hitchhiker because of her mutant thumbs. It's based on a book.
Love that.
Okay.
It's about a lesbian commune who get whooping cranes high to save them from... it's weird.
I mean, I was trying to explain this movie to Katie and Connor last night, and I was like, yeah, on one hand, it's a Henriette adaptation. On the other hand, it's one guy's quest to deal with his mommy issues. On the other hand, it's a psychosexual fever dream about the loss of the American dream and how it was never really true if you're not cis, white, and straight.
Yup.
It is all of those things rolled into one, and sometimes you're just left staring at the ceiling going, I need a drink.
Yeah.
This is a fascinating movie. I certainly wasn't bored.
Can we talk about the moment where River Phoenix has an orgasm and it's a barn falling out of the sky?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a choice. I was like...
How did they
Okay,
do
so-
that? Did
No-
they just,
no
have a
fuck.
whole barn on a crane and just...
I assume so.
that was
Um,
practical. That was a
Right.
practical barn
I looked-
falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
There is a lot of practical stuff in this movie, but I know after doing some research, apparently the falling barn is a recurring motif in Van Sant's paintings.
Oh.
So this is his white whale of a shot.
Interesting. I mean, I guess you could argue it's supposed to be further
Yeah.
metaphor for the American Dream thing that River was talking about.
It's the American Dream thing, and because I read the IMDb trivia, which you do instead of things, and in the IMDb trivia, it lists that the falling barn is also a symbology of trying to go home to a place that no longer exists, which is also very prevalent to this movie.
Yeah. I
Um,
very much get that there are definitely themes here.
Mhm.
You can't say that this movie doesn't have themes.
Oh, very much
There
so.
are motifs even.
There are
Symbols.
motifs even. Symbology.
And some of those motifs were blunt, like a certain patriotic song that was used a lot.
Yeah. The double take I did when that first popped up, I'm like, wait, am I seriously listening to America the Beautiful? Right now? And it pops up multiple times.
I also love the harpsichord music, or whatever the medieval styling they're doing in
The
some of
timbre
it.
and fife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is very, very much a vibe.
These are the Shakespeare parts of the movie. Yeah.
I mean, this was going to be more Shakespearean, apparently, at one point in the production.
Yeah. Then New Line was like, maybe not.
I know people who are kind of on the fence on whether or not the Shakespeare stuff works. I personally think it does if you view this as a massive experimental project.
I mean, it is.
Because the dialogue at first really only gets poetic, or Shakespearean poetic once Bob shows up, for example.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. He's the Falstaff, of course.
Or, there's the subversion of the campfire scene, which we'll probably get to in a minute. And what that actually means, and even the use of practical effects and how we wanted specific things to look. There's a lot of experimenting going on here.
Oh, yeah.
Can we talk about how beautifully gay this movie is?
Very. I have quite literally one of my very few notes for this movie is toxic masculinity versus the intricate rituals used to touch men versus toxic homoerotic friendships. Because as a queer person, if you don't have one toxic friendship that results in both you coming out and you ruining your life, have you really ever been queer?
Oh boy.
It's a long story.
It's also a long story on my end, so
Yeah, we've all been there probably.
Defo.
Yeah. Also, I got to be one of the lucky 10,000 who got to see this movie for the first time for this podcast, because I knew if I watched it, I was gonna get some form of catharsis or some form of emotion, and I knew that I had to be emotionally prepared for it. I wasn't emotionally prepared for it, and I still experienced shrimp emotions.
Yeah, it can be a lot at times.
It's very, like, I didn't cry, but I was left with this strange sense of hollowness and yearning and betrayal and yearning.
Double yearning.
Double yearning.
What is more queer than yearning? Like I was telling River earlier, Mike certainly experienced a fate worse than death in listening to his crush fuck his crush's new crush. That was great.
I kind of find it interesting about how I'm hesitant to call them sex scenes because they're not really scenes.
Yeah, they're like tableaus.
Yeah.
They're a montage of tableaus, and I was like, interesting choice here.
My YouTube channel, I did a video on my Own Private Idaho.
Yes,
and I showed the sex scene between River, Keanu, and Udo Kier, thinking that I could get away with it. I could not.
Yeah.
I got a strike on my channel for putting that up, and the video was removed.
Yikes.
Frankly, I'm surprised Gus Van Sant got away with that.
The sex in this movie is fascinating.
Yeah.
As one of the NBs in the room, I will also state, before we get too deep into the psychoanalyzing of everything, I want everyone's wardrobe. Everyone's wardrobe in this owns. I want it so badly.
I did say that was the most NB thing I have heard you say, River, and that's
Listen!
quite a lot.
Mike's character alone has like 3 coats that I am like, I want those in my closet now.
I'm not even an NB, and I'm like, River Phoenix, I want your hair.
God, yeah.
Yeah,
beautiful floof.
Yeah, I'm definitely it's the 90s hipster energy. That's what I want out of life. I want to dress like I'm a 90s indie character.
Interesting that you bring up the 90s. Since this is so experimental, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room here, about where and how this was made. It was part of like the big 90s indie boom. I think Kevin Smith is probably the most famous person who kind of came out of it.
Probably.
I'm sure you've got a million names to correct me with right now, but like it was a time that was just like you can get a little weird. I mean, not too weird because
we still got to make commercial entertainment.
You cast a teen heartthrob and you shot the sex scenes as tableaus. So
we cast 2 teen heartthrobs.
Yeah. Two teen heartthrobs.
Please, let's not ignore the fact that Keanu is also hot.
Honestly, watching this made me feel not depressed, but nostalgic for a time I barely remember. Because it's like nobody's making movies like this anymore. Not even like the pipeline doesn't even exist for this anymore.
That is true. Like the low to mid-budget American movie doesn't necessarily exist. There are micro-budget movies being made now, but like mid-budget movies are being made all the time outside of America. Not in English, but you're absolutely right. The new queer cinema movement, of which Gus Van Sant was a leading voice, that can only really flourish in this time when bigger studios were willing to invest in smaller projects like this and not have, because the economic process was still there. Everything didn't have to be a tentpole or just something you dropped on streaming to be forgotten. But
One day we will contend with the horrors that is the modern filmic landscape. But unfortunately, if we tag that along with this movie, we will end up in a depression spiral and question our existence, even more so than we've already been forced to today. I recommend fishing us out of this spiral before we get too deep down it.
Please do, yes.
They don't make movies like they used to.
It's okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed.
They used to make good low-budget movies with nothing but a camera and some fallen barns.
River just power word aged everybody again.
They had to make it now. They make a cinematic universe.
Oh,
They would tease Keanu Reeves going to war against the French.
God! Fuck!
I mean, especially now, because Keanu is in his Keanu-sans, of course.
Keanu.
And speaking of, oh my god, Keanu and River have such good chemistry, though. It actually makes me mad.
Is this a good segue into the campfire scene?
Obviously.
Let's have emotions about the campfire scene. Let's see if I can get through this without unpacking the River thing, which I feel like I might have to unpack.
I think we gotta.
All right, strap the fuck in. I tried explaining this once, and I sounded like a crazy person. So, Jasmine, you are happy to cut this if this makes no sense. So, I was dealing with the whole NB thing in, like, my freshman year of college, senior year of high school, and I, like, was messing around with it and toying around with it, and I had, like, seen River Phoenix's, like, I don't remember if I'd seen him in anything. I think I just, like, saw his name and saw his image, and I went, oh, that's it! And I found a YouTube compilation of some Alika's Attic music, which was his band with his sister, and I remember, like, listening to that on the couch of my parents' place and being like, oh, this is something. I don't know what this is, but it's something. And then that sort of got pushed on the back burner while I went to college. And by junior year of college, I'm like, I'm definitely not a girl. I need to go unpack that box again. And when it finally came time to be like, all right, if you're going to unpack this box, you've got to pick a name. The first one that came to my brain was River. And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's it. And I had held off on watching this movie specifically because I knew what, like, a cataclysm of it that it is. Because I've seen, like, Stand By Me, I've seen Sneakers, I think I watched, like, part of something else, and of course I've seen, like, Last Crusade. Duh. I am who I am as a person. But this movie held, like, such a cluster of a crate of a, like, mimic treasure box that I knew the minute I unlocked it, it would rewrite my brain chemistry in ways that I would never fully process and never fully understand. And it had that mythos, it had that reputation, and I was like, something has to trigger me opening that box. This podcast was enough. I've opened that box, and it did fundamentally rewrite my brain chemistry in ways that I have not fully processed and never will fully process. And this scene is in no small part because of that, because it is perhaps the strongest example of what could have been. Like, I was talking to Matt before we started recording, the idea that River was going to stay an actor. I don't think that's the case. We will never know, because we cannot commune with the dead, and we cannot have a seance. But he had so many other interests, I don't think he would have stayed in front of the camera. If the rumors about the scene are to be true, that he wrote and directed this and, like, kept Gus Van Sant completely out of the process in the production of this scene. Like, he wrote this, he already talked to Keanu about it before he brought it to Gus. The idea that this is a snapshot of what we could have gotten breaks my goddamn soul. And it's something that I don't think I personally will ever process, but I think also we as a collective will never process, because River Phoenix is one of those names, and I'm going to sound glib, and I don't mean to, but he's one of those figures who only means something to a small portion of the population. Like, he gets the James Dean comparison all the time, but James Dean, you ask a normal person on the street about James Dean, and they're going to be able to name something. River is 60-40, I want to say. He matters so much to a small population of us. And I don't think he gets enough credit now, even more so than he did back then. And I think that's the truest heartbreak of this is a glimpse into an alternate universe of what we could have gotten had he been allowed to develop his voice in any capacity. And we're never going to get it.
Mm.
Well, you got me reaching for tissues.
Kind of, yeah.
I just there's several interviews with Vincent that I looked up, and what River said was right. That was basically almost all River Phoenix's idea. I mean, there was a written scene.
Yeah, and he like
a lot of what River Phoenix added was a lot of stuff that he says at the beginning, like, you know, if I had a normal dad, a normal dog, that sort of thing. And apparently even just everything was left up to River Phoenix and to a certain degree to Keanu, because even the kiss at the end was even left up between the two of them. Even Gus Van Sant is saying, like, okay, if you guys want to kiss, kiss. If you don't, don't. We'll just leave it up to you. I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
So it's just, what fascinates me about that scene is that we were coming off an era of movies that were not great to queer people at all. Mm-hmm. Even the queer movies that are referenced in this one, there's just a vulnerability that you don't see in this era of movies. That, I mean, we would sort of pick up something later-ish as we became a little more identity-focused, but that's for a different person, and I'm not really qualified to speak on a lot of that. But when you think of it as a subversion of the Western, I just think it's fascinating. I mean, it's already got flavors of the road movie by design, but it is so gorgeous how it's acted, how it looks.
It's all done on a soundstage. It wasn't shot on location. It was all done on a soundstage.
A soundstage in Seattle.
Yeah!
I had to watch it like 4 or 5 times. Or like, am I getting all of this? The reason why we're bringing it up so much is because I'm me and I delve into these things. But when you talk about this movie, even to a passive observer, this is the scene that comes up. Yeah. Not the Shakespeare, not the falling house, not even Gus Van Sant's body of work. This scene is the clincher.
It really was the first time I was just like, okay, no, like that's the first part of this I really vibed with, because I'll be honest, I had a hard time kind of getting a grip on this movie. Like, it is a very meandering piece. Like, again, there's clearly a point to it. I'm not saying there's not a point to it, and I get what they're going for. But, like, that was really the first time I actually felt a real emotional core there, I guess.
And it's surprisingly early on. Like, you expect this to be a midpoint moment, but it's like the break of the first act, not even. Like, you get the, like, we've got to camp down for the night, and then you're like, oh, shit. And it hits. Just like a narrow bullet to the skull. And you're just like, oh, God, okay, all right. I am now experiencing emotions. They are shrimp emotions. I don't know what this emotion is, but it's new and it's feeling. And I think part of it is the clumsiness of it. River's acting choices are very much like every word he says, he's like second guessing whether or not he wants to continue the sentence. It is incredibly poignant, and it's very much like every word I say is the wrong word. Every word I say risks me being left here. Every word I say is a shot in the foot, but I can't. To not shoot myself in the foot would to not be honest. And this is the one person in this godforsaken planet that deserves my honesty. And all it does is bite him in the ass! And that is what makes the ending so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
If anything, it makes Scott look worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Scott is fascinating, though. But, yeah, it's just... Again, I feel like we've all had that moment where we at the very least considered telling that one person that probably it isn't queer that we have feelings for them. I know I have. And I'm not going to get too deep into it. It is a shit show. But
Save it for the paywall.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to know my emotional damage, we pay it for our Patreon. But yeah, it is a fascinating little movie. It's literally just about the street kids and what they have to do to survive. And you know, I mean, with Scotty, of course, that, like, again, Scotty is a very fascinating character because he doesn't have to do all of this. You really just get the sense that it's just like, yeah, he's just getting some shit out of his system before he has to get rich and boring, basically.
I mean, he basically admits that.
Yeah, he says it multiple times, and it's just like, interesting. But did you ever consider a secret third option?
Scott fascinates me in the way that, like, you know, you do the whole Falstaff exchange at the end of the movie, and I quite literally was gritting my teeth all the way through that. My, like, nails were in my couch. I was just like, I hate this! I hate this!
Well, that goes back to the Shakespeare. I mean,
Exactly.
part of the cruelty of Prince Hal is that he doesn't have to be there. I know you well and will a while uphold the unyoked humor of your idleness, yet herein will I imitate the sun. He knows that he doesn't have to be there. He's there because it's fun. He's a poverty tourist. He's a prince in rags. He knows it, and he knows that all of the hardship, all of the harsh economic decisions that they have to live with are just optional to him because he's the heir apparent. And that's, it's a tragedy. For Falstaff and his friends, it's a tragedy.
The sheer level of privilege to be able to just go back and forth on it.
I don't remember, because again, I was, like, white-knuckling that scene, but, like, I know Mike is in the pile of people of Falstaff when he sees that Scott goes into the restaurant. Does Mike actually go into the restaurant, or does he skip it?
Is he even in that scene? I can't remember.
He is. He's tucked away in the corner when Bob's friend asks, like, why do you recognize that guy? He's the one who says it's Scott Favor.
Yes.
He's, like, tucked away in a corner, like, half asleep.
I remember Flea was there.
Yeah. Flea was in so many weird movies in the 90s.
Flea's in so many weird movies, period.
If I had a nickel.
He's a great actor. He has a great physical presence, and he shows it up here. He gives it all. He's fun to watch.
But if I had a nickel for every time Flea appeared in a Keanu Reeves movie, I'd have 2 nickels, which is a lot. It's weird that it's happened twice.
What's the second one?
Point Break?
Oh, yeah. I've never seen Point Break.
Point Break is also very good and very gay. You need me so bad it tastes like acid in your mouth. That's not something you say to a straight person.
That is a very gay thing to say. Holy
it has Keanu Reeves in his 20s in a crop top.
Oh, well, there we go.
The main love interest's name is Tyler, and she is a pixie-cutted hair surf instructor. This movie is queer culture. Please watch Point Break. I don't remember, but I swear to God, if I had seen Point Break at a younger age, I would have realized I was bi sooner. But this isn't about Point Break. This is about my Own Private Idaho, which also would have made me realize I was bi sooner. But yeah, like, that's the thing, is, like, he sees Scott and he is so resigned. It's also because he's, like, it's implied he's half asleep, but he's so resigned. He's like, I can't.
We're not getting him back.
I can't bring myself to care. If I bring myself to care, then I will be fucked over again.
I've already listened to him fuck his girlfriend multiple times. This is a fate. I've already experienced the fate worse than death. Please, just let the wound heal.
Yeah.
I can hear the tableaus.
Yeah. We can't see the tableaus, but we can hear now with sound, which is even worse.
Like, is there anything worse? I don't think there is.
The other thing is the fucking funeral. The fucking funerals.
The 2 funerals.
That is so good.
The 2-tiered funerals and the longing gaze across a cemetery. It's about the longing gazes across a cemetery.
Yep.
Shakespeare's done a lot of things, but has he ever created a longing gaze across a cemetery?
No, that's more of a Mary Shelley thing.
You know, it begs the question, have you ever been to a funeral where people make out on the coffin?
I can't say I have. Again, that's more of a Mary Shelley thing, I feel like.
I think we need more goth friends, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I have a goth side of my heart.
When you think about it, it's just the dramatic points of Mayor Favor's funeral, where it's, like, very conventional, almost classic.
It's a bordering on Catholic funeral. So classic Catholic, yes.
Yeah.
No, but in the way that it's shot, it's very typical. And then we cut to Bob's funeral, and it's just this handheld chaos of rock music
there's
and
an accordion there.
There's an accordion.
There is.
and accordions and, you know,
I just screaming his name.
peering off to
Orgy in public.
And you just see Scott just look at this like, do I miss this? Maybe. And it's
less ambiguous, I feel like.
It's truly a great use of your Keanu Reeves neutral mask.
Yeah, that's like part of the appeal of Scotty too. Is just like, listen, we all love Keanu, especially nowadays, but he does have such an interesting way of delivering his lines.
Well, for this, it kind of works.
Exactly.
Like, I love the way that Keanu delivers all of the stuff with Bob and the stuff, because it feels like he's playing at it.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to adopt this mannerism, but he's doing it to play the part. And it's even more structured when he cuts into Mike and he's talking like he normally would. And it's such a great choice. And it's, you know, really, really kind of fun and fascinating.
And then like his conversation with his father, like it sounds like so much of what he says sounds scripted, which makes sense given what we discussed with him as a character. How, like I said, trying to kind of play it both ways to have his cake and eat it.
Yeah. Also, Scotty, my son, Scotty, my boy, my darling son. What the fuck was the outfit to go see your father? I get that it could have been an outrage outfit,
It was definitely an outrage outfit.
but baby boy bestie, maybe go interrogate yourself in front of the mirror for maybe 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds, and I think you would feel better. I think you would maybe consider not betraying your best friend in such a capacity that it ruins you both for the rest of your lives.
Yup.
Scotty, my boy, my baby darling boy, go interrogate yourself in front of the mirror for like 5 more seconds.
Go to therapy. You have the money.
the choices that Scott makes throughout this whole, even the first part of the movie, of just like the dog collar and the open denim jacket.
It's a look. It's a fit. I love it excessively.
I mean, if you're going to piss off your dad, that's
the way to
the outfit to do it in.
Truly, this is what peak male physique looks like. Also, post-top surgery core.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the magazine bit. That was wild.
Oh god, I was watching that scene and I'm like, I am no better than a man. Oh god, I
love that it was practical.
Yeah, it was.
I also love that it was practical, but looking at that scene, I was like, I unfortunately must admit I am still attracted to men.
Am I too sapphic for this movie? Is that why I didn't vibe with it?
I don't know, but that fucking Rivers pose alone, I'm like, I need to chew on his hip bone. Like, there is no other way to describe my emotions other than, like, seeing how River was posed and just going, I need to chew on his hip bone. That's it. That's all I need to do. I think it would fix me. But yeah, the whole magazine scene was just me being like, man, I am still into men. Great news, everybody!
Yay!
That magazine scene. I know I've talked to people who seemed a little shocked over the turn Scotty takes.
He spells it out in that scene.
He tells
Exactly.
us
He spells it out.
early on.
Like, that's why I don't really care for people who say, like, Scott was gay the whole time. Scott's not gay.
I think he's on a journey. I think that, like I said, I think if he talked to himself again for the 5 more minutes, because, like, 5 more minutes, man. Sometimes it's all it takes. But I also think that the magazine scene distracts from the next scene, which is the other street kids telling their stories.
Yeah.
And how things have gone horribly wrong.
Was I the only one who thought that was going to come back?
It didn't really, although
as a more of a recurring thing.
I
kind of liked it.
I think that because again, I read the IMDb trivia. I think Gus Van Sant said that part of the reason he let River do the campfire scene is because they kept that scene and having it not wanting it to be about the homosexuality misery and all they get is abuse. All they get is like that. There has to be that small portion of like joy for lack of joy with light air, like mini air, joy with a footnote. It's not air quotes. It's joy with a footnote.
Yeah, like that scene when the cops come to, sweep the place. Like, yeah, it's not pure joy, but they are clearly having some fun mischief-making time there.
It's because I think they know they're safe. So long as Scott is in the room, they know they're safe.
Exactly. And, I do want to kind of circle back to the whole idea of Scott being on a journey. Like, Avery Edison actually said on the Dark Universe podcast that I keep on talking about on this podcast, but she made a really great point about how a lot of the times where people are on a journey to figure out their identity, she was specifically talking with gender identity, but I think it applies to sexuality too. It's like any kind of figuring yourself out, there is a non-zero chance you're going to hurt somebody, probably a lot of somebody's, because you're growing and there's possibly some self-loathing going there. So whether or not Scotty's gay, I don't know if it's the most important thing. It's just if he is, he's not ready to deal with it, because he feels like he is still shackled to this life that the father that he doesn't even really love has built for him, basically. Mm-hmm. I guess he feels like his only escape is the shenanigans while he still has time.
Yeah. While we're going down this tonal crater, before I talk about the flashbacks filmed by a Super 8, I do want to mention the one little goof I found, at least on the version of the movie that I was watching, when they're introducing Bob and all of the kids are shouting across the rooftops, that final bit where Scott finally like really properly introduces that this is Bob, the frame is slightly out of alignment, so you can see the bit of film strip right on the edge. And I love when things like that make it past editing. I think that's neat. I like the imperfections of filmmaking.
Hell yeah.
Like seeing everybody like celebrate Bob coming back, that was wild. And also like one of my favorite things in any kind of adaptation like this, even if it's to the loosest degree, is the moments where you can see the very clear parallels where it's like, okay, you're clearly trying to translate this into whatever setting you have. I don't know. I always think that's neat. Like Kyle, you even like brought some of it up in your video about it. Paralleled one scene from one of the Henry Fours with, Bob asking what time is it.
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah, it's the whole exchange of like, Falstaff is sleeping, and Hal says you would not even look at a clock if hours were bags of sack. It was like a deliberate line of Shakespeare taken and re-edited for the 90s. Mm-hmm. So instead of like, if hours were sack, it's out. If hours are lines of coke. I find those kinds of translations and adaptation interesting. Like, they tickle me a little. Yeah, it's kind of like having a way of having your cake and eating it too, in that you're still doing the form of Shakespeare without using the exact language. Like, there's a lot to be written about updating the language, but it makes more sense to have Keanu Reeves talk about lines of coke than sack.
Given, again, the kind of shenanigans these kids are constantly getting up to.
Yeah.
It's an interesting movie for sure. It's just, I guess it took a while for me. It's like, okay, I get the themes, I get the point. What's the story? What's the heart of this?
This is not a story. This is not a stories movie. This is a vibes movie.
Yeah.
Jazz, if Reluctant Immortals is a feelings book, then this is a feelings movie.
I understand that now. I understand that.
This is my feelings movie.
And I understand completely. Yes.
I was afraid the narcolepsy thing was going to get overdone, but as it stands, it's a convenient way to get scene transitions out of the way.
That is true. I did find that interesting, but we keep on talking about how we want disability rep that isn't just all about the disabilities, so yay?
Yeah!
God, we didn't even talk about, like, the revelation about his brother. I was just like, what? Here's the thing. As soon as he had his little freak out over that one lady early in the movie, I was like, oh no, something bad happened with your mom, didn't it? But it zigged in that regard.
One guy's quest to deal with his mommy issues.
And how?
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme.
One guy's quest to deal with his parent issues. One girl's quest to deal with their parent issues.
Yeah.
I mean, if all the movies to do it, it would be the gay Henry. The gay Henry ad movie is the ideal way to deal with your parent issues.
I mean, that is what that play is all. Those plays are kind of all about. To at its barest bones,
add a layer of 90s homoerotic subtext and text. Game over, man. I feel like this movie is so much of a, like, the Sam conundrum of it's so much easier to talk about something that is flawed than talking about something that's good, because there's so much good in this, but also it's, like, good in ways that's, like, hard to describe other than just telling you to go take your local, like, metaphor Blockbuster card and go see this movie. Gun.
Oh. We can have people to watch this.
I'd have to agree, but the only reason why I say that it's hard to talk about it because it's good is because it gets weird.
It is a weird little movie.
With the surrealness of it all, with the styles that change, the dialogue changes, even how the narcolepsy is portrayed a little bit.
Kyle.
Yes.
Is this a proto-mumblecore?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Because that's all I could think about while watching River's performances in places, and I'm like, yeah, I think this is your precursor. Or
honestly,
one of.
Mumblecore, I'm pretty sure started as a derogatory term on film festival circuits.
It did.
But for lack of a better term.
But yeah, but Mumblecore was always trying to be this level of indie and grunge and real.
A24 would have eaten this up 20 years later. 30, actually.
But it's still too surreal to be a mumblecore. It's still too high concept to be mumblecore. It still has too much of a soul and point to it.
It still has an artistic vision and a dream.
Yeah, and not, oh god, I just finished film school. What do I make a movie about? Oh, someone who's in their 20s trying to figure some shit out. Buh.
I mean, listen, that there's a reason that keeps being the formula. All the 20-somethings are trying to figure shit out.
As a local 20-something trying to figure their shit out.
I want to pat you on the head, but I'm a 30-something trying to figure her shit out now, which really sucks. That's extra humiliating.
Listen, you're in Friends, and I'm in whatever social construct we got to replace it, I guess?
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Girls?
No, I'm not rich enough for girls. Like, I can't afford a brownstone apartment in New York City. I can barely afford my Toronto apartment. But, like, yeah, that's the joke, is that, like, the first season of Friends, everyone's already in their 30s, and that's part of the joke about Friends. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I was handed the roadmap ash pile and told that it was still legible, and I'm just now holding a pile of ashes and laughing.
The road. You're in the road.
I'm in the middle of the road.
McCarthy's the road.
Oh my god, yeah.
You said ash, and I just thought...
We're not that apocalyptic yet, Kyle.
Yet.
We're getting close.
Okay, do we have to go there? Let's not go there.
I don't want to set the world on fire.
This movie is the most 90s movie without having an incredibly 90s soundtrack.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It has,
which I think is kind of surprising, because, like, the one thing I associate most with the 90s TMCR is the 90s movie soundtrack.
Records, enough said.
Empire.
Yeah, so it's
Empire
country and folk almost.
Yeah, 10 Things has the same verve.
That was always a marketing thing, though. It was
true.
The movie, buy the CD with songs inspired by the movie.
Yeah, true. That's true. And I guess with this indie movie that barely cost anything, like, it literally only cost like $2 million.
Because they got everything for free. Like, Matt Groening and Gus Van Sant were friends, which is why they have the Simpsons clip. Because they just asked him nicely.
Wild.
They used, like I said, they used Alika's attic in one of the scenes, so they just borrowed Rivers Band's music. Like, this is the equivalent of asking all your friends to borrow their stuff to go make a movie. That makes it.
You know what that's called? Cred. That's authenticity.
It's this movie, Handshake, Eat Local, where everything about this movie makes a little bit more sense when you get the understanding that it is a bunch of friends sticking around making a movie,
and you get a lot of good stuff out of that.
You truly do. I love Eat Local. It's one of my favorite vampire movies.
Like I said, I did have kind of a rough time like latching onto it, but I'm not going to say it's not fascinating.
It's an atmosphere. It's a vibe. It's
an energy. Does this movie make more or less sense with Henriade knowledge?
A little bit more, I think.
A little bit, yeah.
I'd say a little more.
Okay, because I went in with like zero Henriade knowledge. Like I have like cursory understandings and what have you. Like I have historical knowledge, and I knew like the semi-basic framework.
Even the basic relationships are pretty well established in the movie itself, without needing to know that it's loosely adapted from a couple Shakespeare plays.
Yeah, you could absolutely easily watch it without knowing it, but knowing it, it's just like, okay, so like I said, Bob is the Falstaff. And Scott's like this because he's Prince Hal.
Fun flavor detail.
Yeah. It's an Easter egg, really.
I will say I do appreciate the one other like minor detail I really like that I like actually made the effort of writing down is smoke to the face as a blatant fuck you. During the dinner scene with Scott, the girl whose name has escaped me, and
Carmela.
Carmela.
I wrote down, it is an added insult to injury that her name is one letter away from Carmilla.
Yeah, the smoke to the face as the closest Mike can get to a fuck you without being a fuck you.
It's a classic thing in any movie where someone smokes. It's a perfect display of disrespect.
Listen, smoking ain't hot, but also, yes, it is. Smoking ain't good, kids, but it is damn aesthetically pleasing.
I mean, if we learned anything from James Dean.
James Dean's coming up a lot in this
That
episode.
and car safety.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'll excuse myself.
No. Car safety and smoking. Truly, truly the experience of all time. Yeah, man. What the fuck? This movie. Again, I have experienced shrimp emotions. It has rewritten my brain chemistry. I don't know what the answer to that brain chemistry rewriting is, but it sure has happened.
I mean,
if anything, it'll make you miss River Phoenix even more.
Yeah, absolutely. He puts in a fantastic performance. And, I've heard it said that the difference between art and just straight up entertainment is that art doesn't always have the answers to the questions it's asking. And I guess this kind of falls into that category.
Yeah. Man, art, TM.
It's art.
Sometimes I need to be reminded that, like, as a film major, I can't appreciate art movies because sometimes there's so much shit you're subjected to in film school where you're like, do I even like this medium? Do I even like half the shit I have to watch? And you like sometimes I'm afraid that I am becoming a franchise slum bastard and that is all my degree is for. And then I'm reminded of something like this, and I'm like, oh no, wait, I actually do like this medium, and I do want to stand for its continued existence and the protections therein. Buy DVDs, you cowards.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I'm frankly we all have layers. I mean, you can follow up this wonderful beauty, this wonderful film with, I don't know, what's a movie that's not going to get me in trouble? What's something?
Get in trouble. Go for it.
Love that energy,
it's
Kyle.
something like,
I mean, I
guess people call low art, but I think it's like brilliance don't work. Like Jackass 4.
I mean, I was going to. If I hadn't been so exhausted after watching this movie last night, I was going to make it a double feature with the Cowboy Bebop movie, which I think would fit. It's the very similar energy of the Lost American Dream, vaguely Western styling and surrealist imagery. All that's missing is the homoerotic subtext, and even then, a case could be made for Spike Spiegel.
Even Cowboy Bebop's got the blues.
Ooh, and see, River and I were discussing it when we were talking about the toxic homoerotic friendship. I was like, okay, so then you could double feature this with Jennifer's Body then. That's what I would do.
double feature options if you get nothing else out of this pod.
So I have the Criterion channel
Yeah.
signed
Of
up for
course.
it. They actually have this in a lineup of pop Shakespeare. They have a pop Shakespeare collection out this month.
Incredible.
I'm
Proceed.
Yeah, every month they have this like rotating, collection of movies. They all have a theme. Usually it's pretty esoteric. This is pop Shakespeare. They have it with Baz Luhrmann's Romeo plus Juliet, the Ethan Hawke Hamlet, the Derek Jarman Tempest, Abel Ferrara's China Girl, which is the other Romeo and Juliet adaptation set in Manhattan.
Right.
If we had a
And
nickel.
Even
funny.
Joss Whedon did a Shakespeare adaptation.
Listen, everyone should do a Shakespeare adaptation at some point. It would be funny.
Lars von Trier, Harmony Korine Shakespeare adaptation.
Mm.
I want to see the T. West Shakespeare adaptation.
Ooh.
T. West Titus.
Yeah, that's I was also thinking T.S. Titus.
I mean, and well, now I'm thinking, like, Jordan yes, Jordan Peele should do a Shakespeare, but would he want to?
He doesn't do anything that isn't his.
Exactly.
That's true, yeah.
Diablo Cody Shakespeare.
Okay, I'm listening.
I would watch that. I would totally do that.
My thing is, would she do a better Midsummer or a better Romeo and Juliet? Because she's kind of already done Romeo and Juliet with Lisa Frankenstein.
That is true.
So the next best question is, does she do like a Midsummer, or does she do one of the weirder other comedies, quote unquote?
It'd be kind of interesting if she did like one of the lesser known comedies, because I feel like the lesser known comedies tend to be lesser known for a reason. But...
Yeah, anything is a comedy if it ends in a wedding.
And this movie ends with a guy on the side of the road.
This movie ends with a guy on the side of the road getting mugged.
Yeah.
And then possibly kidnapped.
See, I was wondering, either kidnapped or maybe that's his brother, but that's not much better.
Originally, Gus wanted it to be his brother, and then was like, that's too clean of an ending, that's too nice of an ending, and also his brother kind of sucks, so would that be a happy ending?
That's what I'm saying, it wouldn't be much better.
So he left it ambiguous on purpose.
Because his brother is an abusive dick. Editor Jasmine here. Shout out to Maggie on Letterboxd, who insists on believing that it's Scott. Like, I have got to respect that dedication to forcing a happy ending into this movie.
That's still weird, and I've seen this movie before.
When it first hit, I was like, is it a metaphor for the fact that, like, he did most of the raising and was abandoned as a small child? Like, is that just, like, a metaphor?
I don't think so, considering
And, like,
I got weird vibes from those mom flashbacks.
I also got weird vibes, but I was wondering if it wasn't. I was praying to the gods that it was a metaphor.
Ambiguity, what are you gonna do?
Again, asking questions without necessarily answering them. That makes it art.
It can be done. Oh man, do we have any other thoughts, or am I just
I
gonna
was
go
about to
insane?
I can't believe this might be one of our shorter episodes. It's crazy.
Again, it's hard to talk about things that are good.
Yeah, there's not much riffing you can do. There's like you can connect it to a bunch of other movies.
Yeah.
But
There's not a lot of riffing you can do without it seeming like crass, I guess.
yeah,
Or
Because
even
it's fair.
vaguely homophobic, I guess.
Yeah. That's also a layer of woof.
That's fair.
And like I don't want to do that as a queer.
It's Wrath Month. We're not supposed to be doing that.
I don't know what to tell you. See the movie, it's good.
Yeah, I think everyone should see it at least once. Even if I didn't necessarily latch onto it quite to the same extent that the rest of my fellows here did, I do think everyone should see it at least once. It is quite the experience.
shirtless
if it-
Keanu.
Shirtless Keanu. See if it inspires shrimp emotions in you. Shout out to Keanu Reeves for doing the several 1,000-mile motorcycle journey to get River to see this script.
Hell yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, apparently his agent wouldn't let River see it, so Keanu
Yeah, I
drove
did
it
know
from
about that.
Canada to Gainesville, Florida.
Damn.
That is a hell of a drive. That is like a 3-day drive.
That's a good friend.
That is friendship. That is friendship.
That is
And
that's something the bestie would only do for you.
Listen, again, the River thing. It's a box of can of worms that I will never stop opening, processing, and shoving a lid back on. But, like, if nothing else, seeing this movie, you understand Keanu's grief every time he talks about River.
God.
If nothing else, this
Yeah,
movie
again, their
explains
chemistry
everything.
is top notch.
If anything, if we're thinking about other people's great besides Keanu's. On the Criterion Collection, there's a conversation with his younger sister. That is
Rain?
with Rain.
Oh,
Rain.
God. Oh, God.
You could hear, like, there's a lot there.
Yeah, because, like, Rain is the sister he started Alexatic with. Like, if anyone on this planet is closer, it's Rain. Oh, man, I'm going to go walk into Lake Ontario if you'll excuse me.
Oh, God. I'm going to look for that now and then cry, probably.
Go experience shrimp emotions today.
And...
I learned the phrase shrimp emotions. I can go to bed happy.
Truly.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like River made that up, and for that, I respect them even more than I already did.
It's not a complete echolocalia.
But yeah, so why does the Henriette endure? Little this really has to do with it?
Because Falstaff is a great character, and war is fun to stage. That is what war is good for, huh? Absolutely stage it.
That's fair.
What's the one song from the A Series of Unfortunate Events TV series? There's no happy ending, not here and not now. This tale is all sorrow and woe.
Oh,
it's the old song, but you know, this time
again.
But this time there is no desire to watch them get away with it this time. The desire this time is maybe they won't turn their back. Maybe they won't say no. Maybe they won't break each other's hearts into a billion pieces. Maybe this time I will get to watch that toxic homoerotic friendship that we all had in our early queer baby days not fall into a billion pieces. And maybe just maybe, and maybe just maybe, I love you and you don't even pay me is enough.
Yearning sigh.
Yeah, what is more queer than yearning, I ask you?
Probably cleaning a guy's apartment in a sailor cap in a reference to a movie that
flew over my head.
Over mine.
Wait, that was a movie reference? The Little Dutch Boy?
Yeah, that's a movie reference.
Oh.
What movie?
Allegedly. You ever seen Carell? With we'll get off the mic and we'll
okay. Oh.
You can cut this.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah. Good movie. See it. Live it. Don't live it.
Yeah, don't live it. No.
Do not. If there is any movie you should not aspire to live on this podcast.
No.
See it. Vibe with it.
Cry a little.
Rest in peace for Phoenix.
Go watch the rest of River's filmography.
Make it a double feature with Romeo plus Juliet.
And maybe that'll make you feel better.
Possibly.
Wild that anyone would have to go to a Romeo and Juliet to feel better, but this is where we're at.
Yeah, it's that depressing, but it's really good. And if I had any other recommendations when you're done listening to this, check out To Die For. That's really good.
That's also really good. Yeah, I really do love To Die For, but I also love Nicole Kidman, so that's not surprising.
Yes, To Die For. Watch more movies; they're pretty awesome.
Yeah, movies in general.
Yes, I think we're at final thoughts. Who's got stuff to plug?
You can follow me on Twitter at Dreams Rebel. It's no longer hockey season, but I can now yell about my other interests for the time being. You can also find me on WordPress at filmlion.wordpress.com, where I am talking about television for the time being, though I am contemplating post San Diego Comic-Con of doing a grand MCU rewatch and analysis from the perspective of somebody who kind of grew up in the filmic landscape in which these movies have crafted and created. So,
ooh, could be fun.
I'm Matt Madrano, and you can find me on Letterboxd at Matt the Movie Guy, and you can also find me on Instagram if you want to send me a message or anything at the Movie Guy Matt. Same thing. They'll be in the box below, where you'll find some blurbs about the movies I've seen since I live in Los Angeles. I tend to see a lot of cool things, a lot of indie things. There's a blurb there about another really good queer movie called The People's Joker that made some headlines.
Oh, it's
That's
beautiful.
on my list.
It was at TIFF, I think the year I went to TIFF, and I couldn't see it, which was truly my greatest flaw. I'm also technically on Letterboxd at Punk Skeleton with an underscore in between.
They're very fun. You both are very fun follows.
I'm also on Letterboxd, Kyle Calgren. You can see my YouTube channel with my web series, Browse Held High. You can see me at Kyle Calgren BHH. I have a Patreon. I get ad revenue from clicks, and if you want to cyberbully me, my channel is the place to do it. So,
no, we're trying to stop cyberbullying you.
Yeah, you've dealt with enough, Kyle. Also,
no, I have not.
You now.
It's just how I live now.
Oh,
bring it, motherfucking bring it!
God,
you're a brave soul.
And as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Blue Sky at Faye Riviera. You could also follow the show on Twitter at IER Podcast. And if you would like to help us reach the next chapter of our story, please consider leaving us a review or rating us on the podcatcher of your choice, telling all of your friends and family about us. And even better, if you have room in your wallets, please consider donating to our Patreon, our Ko-Fi page, or just the support the show link below. And dear listeners, I really do want to apologize for how much of a mess both Pride and Wrath Month have been. My current goal is to have The Haunting of Bly Manor up by Friday, and Stray Gods is just going to have to be a bonus episode on our upcoming Lightning Thief Month. So don't you dare miss any of this, and remember, stories gain power in each retelling. Thus far, with rough and all unable pen, our bending author hath pursued the story, in little room confining mighty men, mangling by starts the full course of their glory. Small time, but in that small most greatly lived the Star of England. Fortune made his sword, by which the world's best garden he achieved, and of it left his son imperial lord, Henry the Sixth, an infant band's crowned king, of France and England did his king succeed, whose states so many had the managing, that they lost France and made his England bleed, which oft our stage hath shown. And for their sake, in your fair minds, let this acceptance take.